Okay guys, welcome back. So in one of my last videos, of course, I talked about the DMT operating room. I mentioned the fact that people who were going there felt like it was a reality or a place that was realer than this one, and that's just how it felt. I was talking about the fact that the same entities were being met when people were going there, and the descriptions of the place were generally the same. And this is like between, thousands of people. What I'm talking about today is a very similar story. This place is called the DMT Waiting Room, and it's actually probably even more common than the operating room. And in fact, the descriptions of the actual space itself vary even less. I would say there were hectic similarities between people who were going to the operating room, besides the fact that, people were just going to get operated on when they took DMT. That's similar in and of itself, but then the entities they were encountering, the type of operation they had, was insanely similar. The waiting room, even the space that they're in, is being described the same. It's pretty insane when you think about it. The most basic descriptions that are being shared, obviously the first one is the fact that it's being experienced as a waiting room of some kind. Now this can be because of two different reasons. I've heard people actually say that it feels like you're waiting in the doctor's office for somebody or something to open up and let you through to the next stage. But I've also heard that people will feel the presence of or directly see hyperspace in the waiting room, just on the other side. That's why I think it's called the waiting room, as well as the fact that it is an actual room itself. It's really hard to interpret this because when you Google it, you won't see images of a room. You tend to just see images of really complicated fractal patterns and things like that. But people describe it as having hallways, as having doors, which hyperspace can be seen through on the other side. But it's on the walls that these really complicated fractal patterns are found. I think there's basically just three ways that the waiting room is described as. The first is of it having like just these full-on fractal patterns all over the walls. But then you've also got people describing it as having the most like pure, shadowless, perfect white light on all the walls. And that's just what the whole space is made up of. And then finally, I have heard people describe it as having just like a black and white pattern all over the walls. One person said that there were these black and white yin-yangs all over the walls. Another person said there was just a perfect black and white chest pattern all over the walls. But for me, the very strangest aspect of the DMT waiting room is the fact that people seem to be getting assessed, watched, and even tested by something. Who this entity is or what this entity is, I'm not sure, but a lot of people will describe the sense that there's something lurking around watching them while they're in the waiting room. And sometimes it will take that one step further, and whatever is watching these people will interact with them somehow. I heard one person was actually given a toy, and that's when they knew they were being tested. They knew he could sense that there was like things supervising him and watching him and waiting to see what he did with the toy. Another person actually called this space the examination room. Even though they knew it was the waiting room, they felt like every time they went there, they were being examined by something. And one time they went there, the entities actually manifested themselves into the room, into the space, went up his nose, and then it started examining his body that way. Unfortunately, I don't think he went into detail about what the entities looked like or anything like that. I wish he did, because it'd be very interesting to know if they're the same entities from the DMT operating room, just because I have a feeling that all these places are connected. But yeah, still, whatever is happening, something is watching us when we go there. And that's why I have a feeling I've been to the DMT waiting room. Unfortunately, I don't have a good memory of this experience, but I do remember after smoking DMT once, I was somewhere, I think, and I just remember the feeling of these massive entities just like lurking on the outside of wherever I was, and I could feel them looking in, and I just had to keep my mind quiet. And after that experience, I ended up going to the DMT operating room. Now, obviously, it's very interesting that some people are saying it feels like they're waiting in a doctor's office. Maybe, there is the operating room that obviously has the DMT doctors there on the other side of the waiting room sometimes, waiting to operate on you. Of course, it could just be that if you're waiting for something big to happen and you're in a room, the first thing you're going to compare that to is waiting in a doctor's office. So it's definitely not really like definitely what's going on, but it could be. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe sometimes people go into hyperspace, sometimes they just get operated on by alien entities of some kind. Who knows? What these entities are assessing, though, is the question. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. I would love to know. Because it's super fascinating. They all seem to be testing us or supervising us, looking for some kind of outcome, but I have no idea what that is. One trip report that I read said that the person tripping felt hyperspace on the other side or through a portal or something like that, but they were turned away from it, and a voice told them that their behavior just had to be fixed before they could come back and go into hyperspace. So it is possible that the entities there are like the gatekeepers of hyperspace, and they're just testing us to see if we're allowed to go through. But yeah, I don't know. I doubt that's the case. If it is, I don't feel like that's the only reason why we're being assessed. I don't know what it is though. That's why I'm bringing it to you. I would love to know what you guys think is going on here, because I am clueless. It's such a strange experience when you hear about it. But yeah, I am absolutely clueless as to why we'd be getting assessed or tested or just watched when we're here. No idea what's going on. That's why I want to try and talk about these experiences more and map out what this realm is that we're going to when we take DMT. Because I used to look at it like we're simply having, we're interpreting these experiences like doctors working on us or going into a waiting room so that we can make sense of a stage that we're at. Like if the DMT is healing our brain chemistry somehow, we see doctors working on us, so then we can make sense of that. Or if you're in a waiting room and you see hyperspace, that's because the DMT is slowly kicking in the brain before it just blasts off, and then you're in hyperspace. And that definitely may be true to a degree, but there's no reason really for us to interpret these places as realer than real. And they don't have to be so structured and ordered. We can get the sense that our mind is being healed without the experience of entities operating on us. We can feel like we're waiting for DMT to blast off without being in a cubed room with entities watching us before we go into hyperspace, you know what I mean? The fact that these experiences are so ordered is really interesting to me. And the fact that they all link up, even when you're taking different psychedelics, I can't help but feel like it's this thing that I've heard said so many times, which I don't think I ever really quite understood until recently. I thought I did, but now I'm kind of thinking, yeah, there might be some validity to it. The idea that, yeah, you're literally, when you're in physical reality, your brain is just tuned to tap into this reality or to project this reality. And when you take psychedelics, you're just tuning the brain to perceive a different reality. You're just switching the signal in your mind to receive a different reality, or project and perceive a different reality. And that's why these places are so ordered and so structured, and people are going to the same places and meeting the same entities, having the same sort of experiences, because we're all just changing the tuning and tapping into the same thing. And whatever this reality is, it could be the one we go to when we die, especially as the waiting room has been reported in near-death experiences. Now, there's no way to know if this is actually the same waiting room, but obviously there are crazy similarities which indicates it might be. People are, for one, interpreting it as some sort of waiting room. I believe that the physical description of the place is normally of it as, being completely white, which sounds very similar to, obviously, the waiting room we experience on DMT. And entities can be encountered there. Often people will see, or at least feel the presence of the deeper afterlife on the other side of the waiting room. So I've heard one report saying that a voice was explaining, for you to meet people who have died, you have to go to the other side of the waiting room. That's where the full-on afterlife is. And I've heard somebody say that they felt the presence of hell on the other side of the DMT waiting room, but luckily they were taken out of there. It was almost like a warning to them. But I wouldn't be surprised if the entities that we're meeting here are the same entities that inspired angels in the Bible. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the same space, that psychedelics like DMT are allowing us to map out the afterlife itself. What happens to us after we die? We're able to actually see the different levels of the afterlife. Physical reality could just literally be one layer of this, what we call the afterlife, or the astral realm, or the astral planes. It could also be that we're just trying to make sense of different, chemical states inside the brain. Obviously, I'm not coming to any conclusions here. And in all honesty, when you're there, this is definitely what it feels like. But there's always going to be some scientific interpretation of what's going inside the brain, why we're experiencing it like this. And those descriptions seem to undermine, the existence of these places. But then, it's the same as the existence of the physical reality we all exist on. I've talked about this many times. If you look at it as from a purely scientific point of view, Physical reality, as we know it, is pretty much a hallucination, just a mass hallucination that we're all agreeing upon. So for me, there's no real point in just being like, okay, yeah, you know, this is what psychedelics are doing to the brain, and that's why we're having this sort of experience, because we could do that with sober reality as well. But I have no idea what's going on. That's why I want to be a part of this awesome psychedelic community, because we're in the process of discovering something new. We're in the process of seeing and finding something new and rewriting the way we perceive reality. That's what psychedelics are doing. That's what this new psychedelic renaissance is about. We're literally rewriting the way we look at reality. At least that's what I believe. I think if everybody tripped, everybody would see life differently. Just like that. But anyway, guys, I could keep ranting on forever about this. I will leave you there and talk about the waiting room once I've done more research in the future, hopefully. In the meantime, thank you to all my patrons. Yeah, you know how much it means to me, the fact that you support this channel, so thank you all. And for the rest of you, thank you for watching this video as long as you did. Hope you all have an awesome day, and I will see you all very soon.